Hello everybody, my name is Stratmus, and in today's video, I'm going to talk about patch 10.1, what to do this first week, and I also want to answer a bunch of frequently asked questions that I've been seeing on and around the internet about what to do with the Crests and Flight Stones upgrade system. If you're interested, I made like a 30-minute video with a bunch of spreadsheets and stuff, and there's a spreadsheet you can look at as well. But I wanted to distill down the answers to some of those very frequently asked questions into like a few sentences of easy to remember heuristics that you can kind of keep in your head for the next few weeks to make that item upgrade system work best for you. It's hard to make a big mistake with the current item upgrade system as well, because the way it works is that anytime you upgrade something, if you get something else in that slot later that's lower item level, you can upgrade for cheap or basically for free to catch up back to where you were. So it's pretty hard to make a huge mistake, but there are some ways that you might want to optimize, especially over the next few weeks. So we'll talk about that. First, let's talk about what to be doing this week on... and so basically on your main character, right, you're going to make sure that you do the campaign up until the point where you... so the main objective this week for power level for PvE players is to earn your Splintered Spark of Shadowflame. Now, this week there is this quest, Power Unified. It's a one-time thing. You get it from like this person over here, and it says, hey, if you get half a Spark of Shadowflame, I'll give you the other half, and you can get a full one this week. In future weeks, you're only ever going to be able to earn half in a week, but this week, you can do this this quest to get a second one. Now, where do you get the other half is from a worthy ally, Loam Niffin. And this quest is not a campaign quest. It is given by Mimoop here, the Keeper of Renown, and this will reward you sensational Niffin treasures, which includes a Splintered Spark of Shadowflame. So that is where you'll earn the one half, and then you can get the other half by then talking to the Examiner here, getting your other half, and there is your Spark of Shadowflame for the week. That's pretty much the only thing that like a power-oriented character really needs to worry about this week. You can grind a bunch of Drake's Flight Stones, Whelpling's Flight Stones. You can get a bunch of Loam Niffin rep, but for the most part, this is not something that you really need to worry about. So the thing is, though, on your alt characters that you actually care about the power level of, you do want to get that Spark of Shadowflame. And so the way to do that is to do the campaign quests. The easiest way to get that, make sure you pick up this quest. Make sure you pick up the quest, A Worthy Ally, Loam Niffin, from Mimoop here, nice and early. If for some reason you earn a bunch of rep and then pick this up late, it doesn't retroactively count, but you can go and earn some more rep. The thing about Loam Niffin rep, though, is that it seems kind of slow to actually grind 1,500 rep. There are a bunch of good one-time sources of a bunch of rep, and I've found the fastest way to do it on alts is just to get to 3 out of 7 chapters. That third chapter there, Sundered Legacy, when you finish it, gives you an item that gives you 2,500 rep. So that in and of itself will get you your Worthy Ally finish. Just make sure that you have this quest. And it's not a campaign quest, so you need to make sure that you pick it up. And yeah, as long as you do that, you're good. If you forgot to do that, there are some like side quests all over the zone, and some of them give you like 1,000 rep each, so doing one of those is good. But if you're put in a spot where you have to be doing world quests or whatever for the rep, they actually give very little rep each. So if that happens, I don't actually know. That sounds like a lot of work. If for some reason you get to like Renown 6 with the Loam Niffin before you pick up this quest from Mimoop, that does kind of suck, and you're going to have a lot of annoying grind to do it, but you can't really get to Renown 6 unless you're picking up all the quests around here anyways, in which case, why didn't you pick up this quest from Mimoop? So try to avoid being that being you is, I guess, the main thing there. Okay, so that's kind of all there is this week with main power. One other thing you can pick up as well is Fighting is its own reward. This is a quest that you can pick up from Thaldraszus. You can pick it up from the Sapphire Enclave in this little building here. And you can pick up that quest, or you can actually pick it up from your dungeon journal as well. You just kind of got to scroll fairly deep into the suggested content tab here, but you will be able to find the Fighting is its own reward quest. It will ask you to do 5 heroic dungeons, although apparently this works on M+ as well. And if you do this, you will earn a bunch of rep, including Loam Niffin rep. So hey, if you somehow are needing Loam Niffin rep, or if you're trying to rush rep, which doesn't have any huge power behind it, by the way, that's not a big deal. I've seen some people look at the rep 20 reward as a huge thing, but it's really not. It's not something that I would grind. It's I think less powerful than like the the hunt grinding was in 10.0, and even that wasn't that big of a deal. But anyways, when you complete this quest, you can get a piece of Champion 1 out of 8 415 gear. Now you can upgrade this to Champion 4 out of 8 this week, which is 424, and that's actually potentially an upgrade for even mythic geared characters now. That could be a potentially best in slot item for this week. You can then upgrade the 424 to 437 next week, but that takes me into my next point, which is about the item upgrade system. And basically, the thing to remember is that for most players, the Worm's Crest, well, maybe not for most players, but for players that can do like Heroic Raid, plus 11 keys, or higher content, the Worm's Crests are going to be the resource that you are limited on, and that's the resource that takes items from 424 to 437. So that is the area where you should be cautious before using your upgrades. So I've created a handy little, very badly set up Microsoft Paint 3D text file, and then I realized it was kind of hard to read, so I put in some purple lines to make it easier to see the things. So here is a little bit of a kind of just 1 or 2 bullet points, depending on what kind of character you are, what kind of player you are. So if you can do at least normal raid or plus 6 keys early in the patch, upgrade any items to 424 if they make your character better. That means any item on the Explorer track, any item on the Adventurer track, any item on the Champion track, bring any of those items up to 411, 398, 424. If they make your character better, you are almost certainly not going to be short on Drake's Crests. If you can do the normal raid and the plus 6 keys, you're going to get a bunch of Drake's Crests, way more than you will know what to do with. And you'll have way more Whelpling's Crest than you know what to do with as well. So use those to bring your gear up to 424 if it makes your character better. Do that now, do that next week. It's not impossible, but it's hard to run out of those crests. That's going to be a resource that you really have to do some convoluted stuff to end up having a situation where you have fewer of those than you actually need. Now, if you can do Heroic Raid, but not Mythic Raid, and you can do 16 keys, 11 to 16 keys, but not 17 or higher keys, then upgrade any items up to 437 as well. Now again, that 424 to 437 range is using those Worm's Crests, which are the most limiting resource. But if you can't do Mythic Raid or 17 or higher keys, then there's not really any benefit you can get by saving those crests. So just make sure you're prioritizing the high budget slots. Do those upgrades next week and in the coming weeks, and you'll be fine. That's you will be short on Worm's Crest probably up until somewhere between weeks 3 and 5 by doing this, but that's fine. That you're making your character better, and there's not anything better that you can be doing. But if you can do 17 or higher keys, particularly if you can do 19 or higher keys, and or if you can enter the Mythic Raid early, first of all, plus 20 keys are the best thing you could be doing because they give you the best vault. But 19 keys are better than 17 keys because they give you 431s, whereas 17 keys give you 428s or whatever, 427s. And that means that they'll require 1 less Worm's Crest each to upgrade. And the thing that you want to remember is that you only get 10 Worm's Crests per week starting next week, which means that if you're upgrading an item from 424 to 437, that costs you 4 of your 10 Worm's Crests. So you can only do that 2.5 times per week. But if you can get the item at 431 from a plus 19 key, then it only costs you 2 Worm's Crests to bring that up to 437. And that is much more efficient. You can do that 5 times per week. So if you are capable of doing that content, try not to upgrade from 424 to 431 if it costs you crests. Try instead to get the items, the 431 items from keys, or of course the better items even still from Mythic Raid would be even better if you can do that, to save those early Worm's Crests, because Worm's Crests are the limiting resource for almost all players. You might be thinking, wait a second, what about the Mythic Crests? Well, the Mythic Crests only ever can be used once per item. The Heroic Crests can be used 4 times per item, or 2 times, depending on whether they're dropping at 424, 431, or somewhere in that range. But each Mythic Crest can only ever be used on one. Each item only ever needs 1, right? Because they can only go from 437 to 441. You can't upgrade above 441. So because of that, the Mythic Crests are going to be in much lower demand. You get 10 of those per week. You only have 14 slots on your character. Now, there is the Enchanted Crest system, which does cost some of your Mythic Crests, your Aspect Crests, if you can get those. And again, those also come from 16 or higher keys. But that still is a great use of your Aspect Crest because, again, you're not going to have very many. You're not going to need very many to upgrade 437s to 441s. You'll only ever need, maybe on week 1, you might have some 437s that are staying at 437 for a couple more days, and then the next week you'll get the Aspect's Crest to upgrade them. But other than that, the Aspect's Crest are not going to be the resource that slows you down. It's going to be the Worm's Crests. So pretty much no matter what type of player you are, never make an enchanted Worm's Crest. That is a waste of a valuable resource, and only ever do that if after you're done upgrading a bunch of stuff to 437, and if you're never going to be able to do a 16 or higher key to make an enchanted Aspect's Crest. If that's you, then okay, you will get a permit to make one of these enchanted Worm's Crests, but you have to be sure because it is really inefficient otherwise to use the Worm's Crest, which are very valuable, to make the enchanted Worm's Crest, when you could instead use the Aspect's Crest to make an enchanted Aspect's Crest, using a less scarce resource to make a higher item level piece. That's just almost always going to be a better deal for almost everybody. And then finally, use your sparks wisely. Just don't cannon off your early spark on an item that you might regret later. Remember, you can't scrap them. You can't get your sparks back. Using a spark this week can be okay if you know for sure what you want it on, but it's only going to make you a 424 this week. So you don't gain a huge amount of power by committing your spark right now. Maybe wait until you have that enchanted Aspect's Crest after doing some 16 keys at the start of the next reset, and then spend your first spark when it will be a 447 piece that it is making, and pick some powerful slot or some great embellishment as your early spark and your first few sparks, right? They should be focused on being those highest upgrades you can. If you're going to set foot into Mythic Raid early, look at the loot table. Make sure you're not going to be using your spark to craft something that, particularly like if you're one of the only male armor users in the raid and one of the first 2 bosses drops like male, bracers or something like that, don't craft male bracers, right? Obviously, you probably don't want to craft bracers anyways, but just look at the loot tables from the first few bosses in Mythic, look at the loot tables from the last few bosses on Heroic, and make sure that you're not using your sparks to craft something that you're going to regret in the future, because the first like 5-6 sparks that your character drops you're going to have good uses for all of them, so make sure you don't accidentally craft a bad use of them. That being said, that's kind of all there is. This is the most I could distill down into just one page. Maybe I could have done better. I have a tendency to probably still use more words than I need to for this, but hopefully this has helped you remember what to do. And if you have any questions about it, stop by anytime I'm streaming, twitch.tv/Dratnos. Put some questions in the comments below. I'll probably not read them. Tweet them at me. I'll try to read them in the comments below. I try, but it's hard. And yeah, I'll try and help answer them. But this is my main advice for most people. And again, just don't be worried. Aside from Worm's Crests, it's really hard to overuse any of the other crests. So you can just think of the Worm's Crests are the limiting resource. The other ones I should use anytime they might make my character a little bit better, and it's very hard to get punished for that. One last note about this fighting as its own reward quest. People have been reporting that this Heroic Dungeon Delver's trophy chest has not been respecting their loot spec. Now, if you are playing a class that has a bunch of items and loot specs that you wouldn't want to see, a bunch of weapons like an intellect weapon on your rep pally or something like that, it might be worth waiting to see if Blizzard does hotfix this so that it does respect loot spec. So maybe worth not turning this in for a day. And then people have been asking, should I choose the Shadowflame crest or the 415 item? Again, remember my heuristic. The Drake's Crests are not an important resource that you're going to be short on, almost certainly. So you're pretty safe to take this 415 item and upgrade it to 424 if there are a lot of 415 items which might be upgrades for you, which even if you're a Mythic Raider in Vault of the Incarnates, there are a lot of things that could come out of this chest that you could upgrade to 424 that might be small upgrades for you. So for my guild even, I'm recommending people take this over the Drake's Crests. Anyways, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. See you in the next one.